Hi, I'm Andrew Scheps. I'm here at BSG in Brisbane, and we're here to talk about Pro Tools. I have been using Pro Tools since new bus chassis, so a really long time. I'm old. I used it a little bit when it was still Sound Tools, and then it was sort of reintroduced to me when TDM mixing first came out. I went to the DigiDesign office at that time in New York while I was working on a record and was shown TDM. And it was pre-release and it was very limited tracks, but that sort of made my head explode because that was the first time that digital audio in a computer started to look like a studio. I grew up at the very tail end of the analog-only world as digital was starting to happen, so I learned in very traditional equipment. And for me, Pro Tools has this great mix of always being cutting edge and having great digital tools that could only happen on a computer, but at the same time, it's modeled in this world that makes sense to me as a recording engineer. You've got your two windows, one of which you could think of as tape and one of which you could think of as a console. Then again, when I'm mixing, I never use the mix window. I'm always in the edit window. So technically I'm mixing on my tape machine, but it makes sense to me. I know how Pro Tools thinks. Whenever there's something I can't do, or I haven't figured out how to do it yet, I kind of know where it's going to be and I can go hunting for it. And 99% of the time it is there. There is a way to do it, and it is the way that I thought it was. There's a very kind of cohesive strategy to the way things are implemented. So you get incredibly advanced features as something new, but they seem very familiar to you if you know anything about Pro Tools, which I think is really awesome. It's a great, stable platform for me for mixing. I love mixing in Pro Tools. I actually mix in a native playback engine. I've got an HD native card. I also sometimes be working on a fully native system, depending on where I am, if I'm traveling. But for tracking, to have the HDX platform for low latency monitoring and not to have to build your monitoring setup separately from your recording setup so that you're actually switching how you monitor when you go from recording to playback is really important to me. It's like the monitoring through a tape machine kind of thing, where nothing has to change when you go from tracking to overdubbing, and you can seamlessly go back and forth between the two. So I love the way the system works. I also love the interfaces. There have been a lot of people who use custom clocks or use different manufacturers' interfaces, and since the 888s, I haven't used an external clock. I always use their stock interfaces. I actually love the soft limit. I think that's a great sound. I have that on all the time on every input. So yeah, there's not much about Pro Tools that to me isn't there. It does everything I want it to do, kind of in every situation. And I'm also finding, especially lately, that Avid is being super responsive to what users are looking for. There are a lot of features that people have wondered, well, how come you can do this and that software and you can't do it in Pro Tools? And those things are just getting ticked off one by one, and often in ways that are super cool. It's not like, here's the basic way we could implement that to make people happy. They've actually really thought it through and found a way to make a feature be something that's a really rich basis for stuff that's going to come later and build on top of it. So yeah, Pro Tools all day.